start.
Uh, all right. Hello, everyone. Let me just see. Can you guys hear me properly? Lars, can you test your mic?
Yeah, test. Hello. Seems to work. I'm not sure.
Okay. Can you guys tell us how's the audio? How's everything just before we get started? Okay, sound is good. All right, perfect.
Okay, nice.
All right, so what's up, everyone? We're here today with Lars. Tell me if this is how we pronounce your name. Lars Sowig?
Yeah, it's fine like this.
How do you actually pronounce it?
Like I would pronounce it a bit more soft, like Sowig.
Sowig.
That's just that's just the German kind of way. So yeah, I don't know.
Okay,
It's fine, like you said it.
Let me just raise Lars's. Okay, can you test your mic? People were saying your sound was a little bit
Test.
low.
Hello. Everyone can hear me better now.
Yeah, perhaps you might need to get closer to the mic. I think.
Yeah. Wait. There's
If you can move it closer to you.
Yeah, I can bend this thing a bit on my headset. Okay, maybe that's better.
Yeah, let me see. Perhaps I can. Can I add
more? Maybe I can change this in my settings.
I'll just add more volume to yours. Let me just see. Okay, is this
Hello?
good, guys?
Better.
Okay, they say it's better, so we'll stick to this and get started.
Okay.
All right, cool. What's up, everyone? So we're here with Lars Sowig, doing my best.
Yes.
And if you guys don't know, basically I met Lars through just Learn Squared, through the platform. I remember seeing his I'll actually pop your ArtStation page right here. I saw some of his work he did for the Mache's futuristic character design, which was pretty awesome. Lars. So,
thanks.
Yeah, it was pretty dope, man. It was one of the, because I was going through homeworks just to post stuff on social media, and I just loved that piece. I'll actually show it right here. It just felt badass, and I think any Metal Gear Solid fan just loves any cybernetic character with a katana. But anyway, I'll just show your piece here. Yeah, and basically I've been following Lars's work since he's taken a couple Learn Squared courses, and perhaps Lars, you can just run us through, you know, how you got to discover Learn Squared, and you know, like I know you've taken a couple courses already, so did that what came out of that?
So I actually can't really remember how I learned, how I got to know Learn Squared, but it's like this. It basically popped up. Everyone was kind of hyped for it, and since I was basically following all the trends during this time, like people would I don't know, do everything just to get better, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They're still doing. So this thing popped up, and there was also, of course, Maciej Kuciara in this matter, like very deeply involved. I even think it's his thing, right? Like I think he raised it together with Ash Torp.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, both of them.
So of course this kind of lands in your feet. So and I even remember I sent because I like this whole concept of having people that learn from each other.
Mm-hmm.
and so on. I was even like writing this awkward message to the Learn Squared Facebook page, like, "Hey guys, do you need someone who's producing content?" and things like this. I mean, I was like 2 years ago when I was just starting or something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is how I basically got to know it. And I also saw the first homework some people posted, and I think this was the moment when I also wanted to give it a try.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I never made use of this more, let's say, more expensive but also more valuable course pack where you also learn together with the
Oh, the mentorship.
respective artists. Exactly. So I was always taking the middle one, is for 100, I
Yeah,
think.
the Learn Squared one. So if people
Yeah,
don't know,
or
basically each course at Learn Squared comes in 3 packages. You have the basic, which is all the lessons. So you get the exact same course content that you would in the other two higher packages. The middle one, the Learn Squared package, is basically all the course content, but also includes, how do you call it, the apprentice's journey. So you get to see people who are learning with the instructor. So you get to see their private reviews, you get to see them doing their live homework, and all that. And you also get to have archive recording of the professional mentorships with the group of students. So generally the best sort of the best value is the middle one, because you get to um, just have more content for your buck in a way.
yeah. And I took a couple of courses. Like I started with Machi's course, with the one that you showed,
The futuristic character
with
one.
this with the Cybercat. And yeah, that was actually the first time I think when I started to think more about combining more software than usual. Like, like try more software, add more software to your skill set, and go all the way from start to finish
Mm-hmm.
and use everything to its advantage. And what was really cool about this course actually is like it has had this kind of non-destructive workflow. So you were able to create assets in different software packages.
Mm-hmm.
But for instance, with Marvelous Designer and things like this, you could always like change pose, resimulate your clothes on top of it, and then you just replace your model in the scene with the same lighting. So you would be really flexible. So I think if I remember correct, was like the way he used to work for films.
Yeah.
And he was always mentioning in the course that imagine your art director comes to you and says, "Hey, can you change the pose?" And then you would usually have like a bit of trouble, of course, because how do you change the pose if everything is already basically set, let's say, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And he came up with this really cool solution that you just have everything prepared in several software parts,
Mm-hmm.
bits, and you can just like go into each and change the things accordingly, and then in the end you can change the result like pretty quick. And that was really cool. It was like a really nice course.
Yeah, because
And yeah,
basically because the way film works, you're always, whenever we know, for instance, Mache worked on Ghost in the Shell, and even though the movie just came out this year, like that means that he's been working on it for a couple years already. uh
yes, of course, yeah.
and it's during
Hmm.
that time that he actually built, I'll actually pop it up, the he that's when he released the futuristic character design course.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's super
so
interesting.
what he was teaching in the futuristic character design course was his workflow for basically, how do you call it, uh
Mm.
the work he was doing on Ghost in the Shell. Sorry, I was thinking and doing things at the same time. So it was literally his workflow for Ghost in the Shell. And in the meantime, he's discovered all different other things. So yeah, Fusion 360, that's something, if you go on his website and look at A lot of the props he's built for the movie, some of the concepts and stuff. It's exactly the workflow he has in this course. So if you digged what he did, you'll find that exact workflow with the futuristic character design course.
And you will also be 2 years behind him, basically.
Yeah, that's the
Or
crazy thing, right? With people in
that's
video
amazing,
games
man.
and all of that, by the time you see something and you're like, oh, this is so badass, like they're way
Yeah,
past it.
yeah. Who knows what he's working on right now, right? So,
I
so
know. No, I don't. I know he's working on
yeah,
a new
that's
course that you guys will definitely love. Ash is also almost like wrapping up his. We have Kirill who's going to drop his very, very, very soon, and a bunch of other good stuff coming out, and we're going to actually start announcing them a little earlier as they get closer to completion, rather than sort of keeping it hush hush for you guys, so you guys will know what to expect and so on, and get ready to jump on whichever course you'd rather wait for. um Cool. Okay, so you mentioned before we started the stream that you're actually working as a concept artist, I'm guessing, at Crytek right now.
yes, exactly. I'm working there now over a year,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's not I'm kind of like fresh in this industry, and
You've been in, how long have you been working in the game industry for?
1 year and 4 months, I think. So it's not really long actually. But yeah, man, it's amazing how much you learn. Like I'm in a team with like very well established people, and they're like super cool, of course, and they're like super skilled. So I'm like in a really good environment to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And what's also what amazed me, or is still amazing, like it's so much different than how I expected it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, maybe I can just start with something I would like to talk about, because it's something that yeah, you would not expect, but it's also really important, I think, when you start out in the industry. And that's basically that the first thing I learned in this company is that you have to kind of learn to develop taste. So you have to uh, get the ability to like and dislike certain things. Obviously, it may sound really obvious, but it actually isn't. Like at this time, whenever someone was posting something, I was just I liked everything. Like I liked crazy anime characters. I liked I don't know, crazy sci-fi stuff with a lot of details everywhere. And I was kind of like overwhelmed by all this love for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys, they basically taught me, which is a really positive thing. Like they also explained it to me, to give a bit of shit to everything. It's how we call it, but it's not like you go onto someone's page or something and flame him. You can still like the stuff, and you can also just like leave a like or something, but you always keep in mind that, for instance, you look at this. I have this example of like you have this cool concept of a futuristic soldier or something, and he has like, let's say, like a bluish armor, and then he has like red trousers, and everyone in the comments, like the crowd goes like, "Whoa, this is amazing! You have so amazing colors there." But then what you have to do is kind of like filter out what's actually good in this image, and what is maybe not the way you should like follow. Let's say, for instance, the red trousers. Like, what soldier has like red trousers? It's kind of like not really a logic
Mm-hmm.
thing, right? It's kind of why would a soldier have this? And I developed this kind of thinking and become a bit more critical also about my same work. I mean, I'm still not there yet myself. I mean, just like endless process basically. But
Do you think that's something, like how does someone, who doesn't have access to that environment, how do they go about developing that critical thinking? Because it is something important to know where sort of in what uh how'd you call it, like where do you take your inspiration from, what do you build your visual language from, because if you're building it off of trend and things that are of bad taste, obviously it's not helping you. So like, do you think if you didn't have access to that group of people within, at Crytek, would that have affected your work? And for someone who doesn't have access to that, how do you go about making sure that you are developing a critical sort of perspective to work and understand how to approach developing good taste and a good visual vocabulary?
Mm, that's actually a really difficult question, because when you're like in this kind of milieu, let's say, it's kind of comes automatically, and you always have like people around you that just like they see this thing on your screen, and you're like, hey guys, what do you think about this? And then they're like, it's cool, it's really nice execution, but this part and this part doesn't make sense. So it's kind of hard to like uh, get this right away, let's say. And also, I think the best way to develop this sort of logical thinking and so on is kind of, maybe you have like industrial background, or you just look at a lot of references. For instance, you know exactly how a spaceship, like a jet or something works, or a jet engine,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're developing jets. This kind of thinking about design and functionality and shape language, silhouettes, and all these terms that always come up. I think it's really hard uh, to like learn these things without having these kind of people around you, because they have like years of experience, and they look at something and they can just like say it, what
Mm-hmm.
they think, and then you can kind of absorb this. And it's tricky, I think. I don't know how I would have like,
If anyone in the
yeah.
chat, if is self-taught and is sort of doing what they love as a career, if you guys have any input onto about that, like we'd love to read some of your comments. I think um, one thing I learned I had my art education by actually going to art school and things like that. And one way for us to sort of develop that visual vocabulary and create sort of cultivate taste was to look at other disciplines. So if you are a graphic designer, you would start looking into ceramics, photography, painting, architecture, and all the different sort of disciplines that are around design, or that are related to design, and start sort of breaking down the barriers between seemingly opposite disciplines, or disciplines that you think don't have anything in common. And by learning how painters critique painting, by learning how designers critique design and photographers critique photos and so on, you start sort of building a toolbox of different, almost like
Yeah.
eyeglasses. So anytime you're looking at something, you have different you're looking at it through a different lens, and that allows you to ask different questions that you might not necessarily think about. And one way we would do this, and I guess this is what you get when you're working at Crytek with your team, is to have people with different backgrounds to look at the same thing and talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. You have like I mean, also from a studio's perspective, I think it's really a clever way if you can hire people with a bit of variety in terms of background.
Mm-hmm.
So you get like the biggest pool of creativity, right?
Yeah.
Because maybe this guy had like industrial background, the other guy is more traditional, and these kind of, they can give feedback to each other, and then you have basically the learn squared principle, right? So um, I think this is the thing, like the best way of learning these things at higher speed.
Yeah.
Of course, if you're surrounded by people with all the different knowledge and so on.
Yeah, if you don't have to repeat some, I mean, anyone who has siblings sort of gets the idea. Like if you have an older brother or sister who, you're about to do something stupid and they tell you, hey, that's stupid, I've done it before, it sort of saves you the entire hassle of sort of wasting
Yeah,
time
yeah.
and so on. So when you're learning art, and that's sort of the principle of Learn Squared, like learning with someone who knows more at the same time. um, they enable you, you just think of Jama's like this crazy insane wizard, and like how many people have gained so many skills just by following Jama and his weird experimentations, by like sketching in VR, which enables you to sort of skip the entire perspective thing and to take screenshots of whatever perspective you want of your object, to just skip so much setup time, and just all these tricks, by following someone who's on the same path but sort of further ahead. It makes a big
Yeah,
difference.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So okay, you mentioned you've been in the video game industry for about a year and 4 months. What were you doing before that, and what was your skill level before that?
So before I was working for a company called Deutsche Telekom,
Mm-hmm.
and before that I was working at Honda Europe, car manufacturer,
Okay.
and I had the chance there to work with them through university basically. So they were picking out people basically, and the guy from Honda visited our university, and this guy liked our stuff, so we could basically visit him in the company, work for them for a semester. So this was also how to say, like this semester, it counted as a semester basically.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, we even had the chance to work 3 more months on it to do our bachelor with it. And through that, I was doing like interface. I can't really tell what I did there, but it was basically like interfaces that were animated with After Effects and all these crazy things. A little bit like what you can say, this kind of Ash Torp thing. So it was also like kind of futuristic inspired and stuff, but still suited for cars. Anyways, there were some industrial designers on the second floor, and they were doing like all these crazy sketches, like all these car sketches. And one of the guys showed me just like this pile of sheets of drawings he did, and it was like, wow, every single piece he drew was like amazing. And he told me like, this lands all in the trash. I was like, wow, how can this guy be like this? What's that for kind of a job? But he said he loves it so much, so he doesn't care, and he recommended me of doing something similar. So that was basically I think this was the point where all this concept art ideas like sparked within me, because I was also like playing competitively some games. I was also doing YouTube videos.
Mm-hmm.
By that time I had like my channel growing to like 13,000 subscribers, so it was like pretty cool thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to like combine this gaming with design. So I was doing interface design, which is not so related, although it gave me all my graphical kind of fundamentals and knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
And I was basically combining gaming, like my passion for gaming, with designing. And so I tried searching for something that could fit. And then, of course, from my geological point of view, where I was situated back then, it was just Darmstadt, like half an hour from Frankfurt away. There's obviously Crytek as the nearest possibility to make this happen. And I just tried for 1 year to like develop my skills, really push my skills hard. Also, I was doing this during university and 1 year after university a bit. And then I landed a job, basically, luckily. I started out as a 2D artist, which was a bit like, it wasn't really a 2D artist, but it was more like doing like marketing assets with CryEngine, render them out, go over with them in Photoshop. So it's basically doing concept art on a 3D base with a more illustration kind of result, let's say, less rough, you know. And from there on, I basically drifted because I showed some interest within the company. I basically drifted into getting a seat in the concept art area, and I was working with all these guys. And I still am. It was really cool.
But did you already draw, like, were your drawing skills still at a, like, already at a good level? Like, I'm trying to gauge, like, because you studied digital media, which is mainly graphic design, I'm guessing, and you know, web design and that stuff. Like, when you decided, when you met that guy who was doing the sketches and everything at Hyundai, what were your
Honda.
artistic skill levels at that time?
So it was, well, how to describe, like on student level, like people already said like, hey Lars, you're doing cool stuff, but it was something completely different. I can maybe show you like really quick what I did.
Yeah, I'll post this video and I'll give you the screen. You can.
So yeah, I just show you like some examples really quick.
Yeah, we're on your screen right now.
Okay, so I was doing, like, let me see. I was doing this kind of stuff. So I don't know if you can see it. I can maybe find something.
We can see
it's loading like really slow, but as you can see, I was doing this kind of vector graphics.
Okay. Yeah, so you were already like doing creative stuff and drawing.
Exactly.
And yeah, this okay. So
I would say I was drawing. Yeah, I think I had this kind of graphical eye already kind of developed in the right direction, let's say. And yeah, from there on, it's basically way easier, of course, to start out, of course.
Gotcha. There's a quick question for you. How does it feel to go from creating frag movies on COD4 to working as a concept artist at Crytek?
Yeah, this guy did his research, obviously. So yeah, I was doing Call of Duty 4 like frag movies. Like I think I have one that has like I don't know, 250,000 views maybe.
Can you play
and
it?
Like 6,000 likes or something. Yeah, of course. Wait a second. Let me go to my channel. How do I go to my channel, by the way? How do I do this? Like here, clicking here? I don't know. Yeah, so yeah, I have these movies here. So I have I can play one like really quick. Oh, look how my perception is wrong. So it's 200,000. Excuses for that. Not 250,000. It would be a bit more. So, but the core ideas, you basically have this.
It's playing a bit slow. If you send me the link, I'll share it. I'll share it because it's not going to look as good on the stream. So just send me the link and I'll share it on the chat.
Oh God, this Skype is always kind of weird. Okay, I have it now. So, but yeah, basically, just to talk a bit about what I was doing, is just you have basically the game Call of Duty 4, and they released mod tools, and you had the chance to basically tweak the in-game configs and change the appearance of the game. You put After Effects on top of this, and then you cut together cool frag movie with people basically showing off their skills and this kind of stuff. And I made it like I tried to make it like as artistically as possible, And yeah, I was also playing myself. Like it was cool. It was really cool time, which I don't regret, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So back in these days, I also wanted to become like a YouTuber, but I quickly figured out that it's hard to rely on such a platform, right?
How many courses have you taken on Learn Squared so far?
Oh, you mean
Because you've
um,
taken the
taken
futuristic
and also
character.
finished?
Yeah, I guess
You.
like did you sign up for, and how many did you
Mhm.
finish? That's the proper question.
Oh, I signed up for a lot actually. Wait, I have to log in just to see. I will do this
So
quickly on the
which
other
one have
screen.
you finished so far? You finished uh, concepting with ZBrush with Alex Figini and the futuristic character for sure.
Okay, I can tell you in which one I'm enrolled and which one I finished. So I'm enrolled in. I can show it here on my screen. So I took the one with Anthony Jones. It was
Oh,
really cool.
painting with
I took.
confidence.
Oh yes. But yeah, that's a good title actually.
Yeah.
um, yeah, just because I still have no confidence really in drawing and showing it to others, but still, I'm kind of still learning, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm enrolled in this one here, obviously this one which we talk about.
Yeah.
Let me check. Uh, oh yeah, I also took this one,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't finish it. This one. I think this one was really really cool. Like this also pushed me a lot. The one from Alex Figini.
Yeah.
Shout out to this guy. This was amazing. Like it was really cool. Like it's a bit like the futuristic character
Design. Yeah.
design one. Still, it was also a lot about ZBrush, which I was using before already.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was really cool. Like um, you also get this kind of taste in the end, which I kind of like, which I follow, and
Yeah.
it's a really cool course as well. I took this one as well.
How much? Someone's asking how much time did it take you to finish the homework? Sort of to finish Mache's class, the futuristic character one.
I can't remember, but I don't know how long are courses usually because I don't take them as they're meant to be. So I think there's like you have a week for each, right?
Yeah,
So you
during the
have like
mentorships, it's 1 week per lesson, and for that course, it was an 8 course lesson. But yeah, like same here. When I took the UI course, I didn't do it per week. I just sort of focused on what it is that I wanted to get out of it, and worked on it
yes,
that way.
yeah, because I think as you said, it's meant to be like you do one of these, you pick on one of these, and then you have like all the introduction and all the description how it works, all the tutorials, and then you have like a week I think to finish it, right?
Mm-hmm.
For each. So I think this one would take you 8 weeks if you would do it in like let's say learning manner.
Yeah.
I was kind of skipping through them like really quick, so I wasn't even watching the whole video sometimes if I kind of knew how it could work. Like,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you can already see a bit if you're familiar with the topic of how it could be done, and you try to stay with your own methods. So this is also what I finished this, by the way, a bit differently than it should be. I wasn't using 3ds Max. I was using ZBrush still for finishing it,
Mm-hmm.
which is going kind of against this because posing is kind of tricky in there, although it kind of worked out in the end.
Yeah, I think it
Uh,
worked out really well.
Thanks. But I mean, in terms of, because here it's all about the flexibility you have, and in ZBrush it's kind of like you're losing this point a bit, unfortunately. But I was more familiar with it than with 3ds Max, so I took this path. But yeah, anyways, just to answer the question finally, I was doing the courses quicker than they're supposed to be. So, for instance, this Alex Figini course, I remember I came back from Spain. I was there over Christmas, and I wanted to be the first who finishes it. And it came out right. Like I think it came out on the at the very beginning of the year, if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember this, so
It
I
was
don't know if
around
I can find.
Christmas, like matte painting, Houdini, and concepting with ZBrush. Like all those courses came at the same time. It was
Yeah.
just
So
around the
so if you look
New Year. Yeah.
exactly. So if you look at these thumbnails here, those are like in chronological order. So those were the first, second, and so on. And here's my finished piece. So I'm the first one who finishes it.
Yeah.
And Travis was the second one. And then we also teamed up, like we were saying, come on, man, let's collaborate and just let's be the first who are doing like collaboration with the Learn Squared course thing, which was
Can
really
you
cool
show
thing
your
to see.
last piece and some of the shots? And after,
Um,
if you have projects, because I know, looking at your art station, you have an IP with sirens and things like that. Like let's look at some of the stuff
okay.
you have here, and then let's move to some of the projects you've been working on.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, this was basically those were all the shots I did. Like I did them. I think it was maybe a week or something in which I finished
You
this
finished the
course. Maybe
course in a week, like just going blitzing through the different lessons?
I don't want to like lie about this. So it feels now thinking of it like it was a week, but it could be also like maybe up to 10 days. I don't know, but it wasn't more than 2 weeks. Definitely, it was like really fast, like
That's cool.
rushing through. And yeah, it was also quite packed as a course and very, very, very well structured and understandable. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
okay. I think it would be also a good transition to go from this to what you were mentioning. So I'm building this IP and I'm basically building it in same kind of manner, same techniques or similar techniques. So to maybe start with something here.
If people in the chat, if you guys have any questions for Lars, just post them, and I'll have him answer them. But yeah, go ahead, Lars.
Okay. So yeah, I have like this project basically assembled here in one piece, and the whole idea is that I was thinking, okay, let's create like a little universe, like Machia, for instance, is building this Showtime universe, and it's like very stylized, and you have these really cool characters, and it's all like consistent in itself, and that's I think a really tricky part, but also a really good exercise. So I thought this could be a next step for me to like get the most out of it. So you're building an IP, you get to learn how to work on an existing project that you also develop yourself, and you learn a bit like how can you make things in terms of language fit to each other, how can you create something unique that's not there yet or something. But yeah, I just tried. I mean, some parts you might see here, which I will show you soon, might be a bit generic, although I think I have like a interesting concept going on there. So the basic idea is the name of this IP is the Sirens, and you have basically futuristic meets primitive. So you have like this primitive kind of Roman weapons attached to a futuristic soldier. So I'm playing a bit with contrasts here. You have like the space suit, and everything is really well developed and advanced. And then on the other hand, they have like, I took away some technology in this universe, which I think is kind of interesting approach. And yeah, so here's for instance like a render I did basically using ZBrush and Keyshot, and then going over with Photoshop.
Just a quick
I have some.
question.
Yeah.
Someone's asking, do you do all your renders in Keyshot?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can show you the renders I did in Keyshot. So this was one of the earlier ones. So to mention my process a bit, what I would do is, let me just quickly open the actual folder. So this is how I structure this project. I'm basically creating folders for everything. There are folders within folders. I start with some sketches, which I will not show now because they're like super intimidating. I feel ashamed to show them, but anyways, I'm basically jumping from this kind of weird stuff, which is like really bad actually, and I get people there to critique it. I, you know, change a lot of things back and forth and just make everything more and more interesting until I get this kind of look I want. Also, sometimes looking at references in between. Always look at references, by the way. That's really important. And basically jumping out of the software, jumping in the software again, doing some Photoshop overpaints, creating like assets as standalones and merge them with the project, trying out some crazy ideas here until I basically like get these kind of results. So going back to this one here, that's pretty much the final one. I later, can people see my mouse, by the way? I don't know.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, so I basically got rid of this tube, then I did some minor design changes to it, but that's basically how it looks within the software, and all I have to do then is drag and drop materials and labels.
Can you, is it possible for you to open one of the files?
Yeah, I could.
If you need me to, okay, I was gonna say if you need me to sort of hide the screen for a second, I can do
that. No, there I have nothing to hide.
Okay, good.
That's all good. I just have to, I think I kind of, I can show you a different colored version because I overwrote it. I'm opening it on my other screen. By the way, it may appear that my PC crashes, so
it's fine. If it does,
okay.
I'll sort of reboot it and we'll figure something out.
Give me a second. It's loading on my other screen, by the way. So
I really let me see if I can bring up your ArtStation again. But I really enjoyed the sirens. It's a compilation of different things, right? Like the I think just having this sort of mech character sort of clashing, the advance of technology in contrast with the shield and the spear. Like
exactly.
Those two things I really love, and the fact that the shield is round sort of gives you, you know, if you look into history, it sort of gives you a time period, and the word sirens, it then goes, but it takes you, even without showing much, this is what I'm trying to say, even without showing much, you're giving this whole storytelling and background, just thinking about Ulysses and all these different things. I find it very rich, and this shows that just picking a right title and doing good design choices can really go far, can really take the storytelling far without showing much.
Yeah, I also like played with the titles a bit, and I ended up having like this plural version of it that makes it appear like there are more of these, you know, like they are, you know, coming out of nowhere basically, and then suddenly you're surrounded by these guys, something like that. So yeah, you're right. It's basically like you say. It's still loading, by the way. So
yeah, no problem.
I have on my left screen.
Can you show us some of the final shots on ArtStation for this project in particular?
Yeah, sure. Give me a second.
People are saying that you know, some people are asking. I guess it's more of a comment, but just how they're impressed by how sort of the amount of talent they find in the community or online and stuff. And I mean, you having learned, and I know you haven't learned all this in a year and a half, like you had background like skills
Of
before
course, yeah,
that,
yeah.
but
That
it is still impressive that you do have a very strong visual language, and you know it still feels slightly different. Like that mech that you did for Alex's class with like a flat head, almost like a
yeah,
mechanic ET. Like
yeah.
anytime you find like really interesting shapes on ArtStation that aren't what you see all the time, it's always refreshing.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Although for this piece you mentioned, I got like a lot of shit because it looks like the this thing from Horizon Zero Dawn. Like this kind of
Oh, I
they have
see. Like
this
for
long
those
neck kind of
gyra,
thing, and I
like
was
the giraffes, and I
and
see
people
what you're
went like
saying.
rip off, and I was like fuck you guys.
Yeah,
But
whatever.
yeah, but yeah, it was I wasn't, maybe I was inspired subconsciously, but yeah, I wasn't looking at it or something. But yeah, it turned out cool. Like also like Alex was mentioning in his course like the silhouette thing, and I wanted to have like something striking, so I came up with this shape basically. And yeah. Anyways, back to the sirens. I originally started out having this kind of green neon kind of yeah, tube on them,
Hmm.
kind of inspired by these guys. I think they're called necromancers, if I'm not mistaken, from Warhammer. I don't know if people know this. So, um, necro. I don't know. They have like this. This is it's like a tribe in within this, and they have this. Yeah, it's these guys. Necrons is the name.
Necrons. I'm not very familiar with the Warhammer universe.
Yeah, it's fine. I just quickly show you like they have basically this green tubes within everything, and I thought that's kind of cool. And I was also like collecting these things
Okay.
back in the day, so kind of inspired by these guys. Um, yeah, giving it my own kind of twist. So they would have this tube, and it would kind of like enlightens the entire scene around them. They would kind of pioneer on planets. So yeah, I thought it would be like a very visual thing. You also have like this glowy shape
Hmm.
always around them. And yeah, I toned it down basically to this, but still you could still have both, right? Kind of
How do
like
you like? How do you like? I'm guessing you're working full time. You know, and you know you've got a ton of passion, but what you know how do you go about finishing courses? Like I know some people take a course and sort of go through it, do lesson one, two, three, four, go halfway through, and somehow you know like can't
mm,
find the motivation to wrap up the course and finish with that you know showcase piece. And you've taken like some of the harder courses on Learn Squared. Like what you know what drives you? What would you tell someone who's having a hard time finishing a course? You know, what advice would you give them?
okay. So um, I will, as I mentioned before, view like answer this with this critical view on it, like I mentioned before. Like I have these glasses on, this filtered glasses now, and the problem always is with these courses, they are done by another artist, and they have their own methods, they have their preferred workflows, and I can totally see if it's hard for someone following this because it's maybe not your natural kind of way of doing
Mm-hmm.
or getting these kind of results. So this is always kind of a thing you have to keep in mind when you're taking a course.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do I even like this software? So why it was so easy for me to finish the courses I took was because I was kind of doing something like this before. I wanted to develop my skills within this certain area. So, and then also I want to take it with full potential. So you always have to keep in mind whenever you take a course, um, do I want to like get something out of this, or do I just want to, like play around, basically, get like see it as some sort of experiment. And I was always treating this like a big project all the time. Like, I mean, if you look at all the renders I did for Alex Figini's course, like I was like, he basically was also teaching within the course. He's like, you can present your concept in different ways, and I decided to make like 5 different versions, or even more. And then also it comes back to you, right? So now I'm here basically in the stream, and people can see it. So, and that's the cool thing about Learn Squared. You guys are also sharing all the homeworks and all the progression people make. So I think I would always try to think before taking such a course. Like, it should be treated as something like serious. And also they're like really affordable. There are other courses that are like, I don't know, crazy expensive, right? Or if you go to art school or something like that, I don't know. Anyways, just saying.
Yeah,
If this answers the question.
Yeah, it does. And you know, it's like, that's one thing that comes up often, and it's really hard. Like, even between Ash and Maciej, Ash is like the most organized guy. Like, he has lists, alarms, his calendar, and all sorts of stuff, you know, to sort of keep him on track and everything. Maciej is different. Maciej makes, like, he uses a Chrome plugin. I can't remember if it's Momentum or which it is, but Maciej just sort of has a couple items to really focus on, like, for that day. And he doesn't really sort of have,
Okay.
yeah, he just has, like, whenever it's a Chrome plugin, whenever he opens a new tab, there's a couple items there that he sees, and he knows that's his to-do list for that day, and that's how he goes about doing things.
Oh wow, I'm not that organized,
You know,
but yeah,
and
that's
for
interesting.
everyone, it's a different way. But at the end of the day, it's just a matter of, you know, is the stuff important for you, and how much do you actually really want it? You know, I was watching and perhaps I'll share the link in a minute. I was watching a YouTube video yesterday about this CrossFit athlete who's been number one at every competition he's been. And basically what he was saying is, every day I try to do something other people wouldn't. Like, I try to push myself to the point where
Oh wow.
I know other people won't go because it's too hard, you know? And he just says, I've done that and I keep doing it because it seems to be working. I always, you know, get that first place. And he still get the jitters, like, before a competition. He's scared to shit. Like,
Oh wow.
it's really hard for him, but he managed to get that sort of mentality where, as long as I do more than others, I will sort of be number one. And he's never pushing, he's never like competing to win first place. He's always competing to win second spot. But because he
Okay.
pushes himself so far, like, he always gains, like, wins the first one. So it's, yeah, you know, and I have examples of people like that in my life that are so focused when they do something. I'm not like that. I need a lot of motivation to stay on track. And luckily, because I sort of analyze my behavior often, I just sit down and think a lot. I know I always look at things as though I have a battery of energy and motivation, and I'm always extremely careful to make sure that whatever I spend, I can replenish that battery with things that I enjoy, so that I always have a backup whenever I need to burn through a project or something that I
I
don't
see.
enjoy, you know? You have to
Yeah.
find tricks that work for you, and keep in mind, you might try something today and, you know, stick with it for a month, 2 months, and it doesn't work. And by next summer, you know, you've grown, you've been exposed to different things, you try that same thing again, and that's your thing, you know. It's really strange. Like, those are things that I've sort of experienced. You just need to keep trying and surround yourself with people who you know, who are hard at work, just to, at least if they don't convince you that you should do it, they might make you feel more self-conscious about what you aren't doing. And you know, if that works for you, I'm not saying it, you should beat yourself up, but yeah, you know, there's ways to make it happen, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. So, some people always compare all this stuff with workout, like fitness and going to gym, you know, like this all this motivation thing. And it's kind of true. Like if you, like I also feel like if I take a break from it, it's kind of hard to get back into the matter after some time. So I think what helps if to get motivation for projects and things like that is to treat certain things as experiments. This doesn't put yourself in, like it doesn't put pressure on you too much. And then once you're like, let's say at a peak and you have like you did like all these crazy sketches and maybe you can see something within them all of a sudden, and then you can make a project out of it. Basically, that's how I treat my personal projects. Of course, when you're also working full time and all this stuff, that it can get a bit overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really a big topic. It's tricky. I also sometimes lack motivation, of course, and although this year has been my most productive before, like
Why is
the most
that?
productive, because I'm working now full time. Obviously, I'm doing like a lot of stuff at work, and I have less time for personal projects though, but I still did quite some. And yeah, anyways, the file is open now, by the way. I mean,
Let's do this.
I can just show you really quickly like what I have. I would like to close it really soon because I fear it might crash my PC, because I have this huge
Environmental.
ground
Yeah.
ground here. By the way, this is kind of inspired, or let's say a one-to-one method rip off from Jama. So he was doing like in Keyshot, you do like this crazy bump map, height map kind of environment, and then you push like a plane through it,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. I've seen
like a
him do that.
reflective plane. And then you get like this kind of mud puddles kind of look. Yeah, and then you have your soldier in there, and that serves as a really good base. So I can press render now and just yeah, render this out. And let me close this before it causes some issues. What I would like to show really quick,
Yep.
which is really cool about doing post. So if I go to my renderings here, let me check if I can show this. So yeah, here's an example. So whenever you render something in Keyshot, that's what I do. I always render out this kind of so-called clown pass. It's basically like a ID map. You have like all the color IDs depending on what materials you have applied to each subtool or object, or however you want to call them. And then you have the possibility in Photoshop, obviously, to, for instance, I can just easily, with the magic wand, select this pink area and have all this area selected, and I can just drop material on top of it, right? And this really helps you to, yeah, to basically have like a nice organized project. So just to make like an example, I can just select this backpack here, for instance, now really easily like this and like this, create like mask, and then I can basically paint within it, right? It's like
Nice.
super I mean, I usually have this on top of my projects just as a mask selection,
Okay.
and that's a really cool thing. Like you can, I don't know, create like you know, you get the idea, right? So it's
Yeah,
like really cool. Also
yeah, it
with the
just
ground,
simplifies the selections.
exactly, and you're like so much faster with it. And when you do this on top of your Keyshot render, which is not the best, by the way, like Keyshot is kind of it's not really good with shadows and AO and stuff. So I always would go and render several passes as well. Like I sometimes have, for instance, here I have like this kind of rim light pass, which I rendered out, which helps sometimes. I just put it over my whole image basically, put it on screen, and then I have this nice white corners, which separates it more from the background. This kind of things. Like you have to do these kind of tricks to get the most out of it.
That's pretty awesome. I'm thinking, especially if you're doing hard surface, like it must be really convenient if you want to do a lot of post in Photoshop by adding textures or things like that.
Exactly, yeah. I can show you some other projects first, and then I can also like show you in the breakdown quickly how it would look. Yeah. So, oh yeah, here's a sketch by the way of this guy. It's like kind of old, but yeah, that's how I would start something like that. I took this one off my ArtStation because I stopped liking it. It was too Roman kind of. So it's also like a trick to it's tricky to not go fully Roman, right, and not go too futuristic. You have to kind of find a balance, and this was one of the bad examples. I also made this thing here, which would fit into the same universe, same principle. To keep it kind of consistent, you have this obviously this kind of ballista, but then again, like this ballista is throwing, instead of launching a rocket, it would rather throw it. And then again, you have like to keep it like silent, you have no exhaust and things like this. You could probably imagine this thing could throw like an EMP kind of arrow
Almost
or bolt
like a
or
railgun type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Although it doesn't has the let's say it doesn't has the how you call it, technique or technology,
The
right?
technology for it.
For like launching it actually, or just shooting it. So just taking away some technology here, but then again, kind of unrealistic, right? But also interesting approach. Then you have like the spider legs, which are kind of air pressure based, like actual spiders, right? Like spiders, that's interesting. Like I found out during this whole thing, for instance, that spiders move their legs by like pressuring the blood into the limbs. So this is why when you see a dead spider, like all the blood flow stops, and this is why they always have their legs kind of like when, you know, it's they have like a really weird way of moving forward. So they're basically putting pressure into the limbs so it would like stretch out, and then they would just basically release the pressure, and this would move the leg forward, kind of like that's the kind of principle I have here. I even have it in like a sketchbook. I did it somewhere. I also came up for like refueling, like this is an excerpt of my sketchbook, like really ugly sketch of how you could refuel this thing with like a air pressure kind of thing. So this is like a quick excerpt of how it could look. So you have this kind of thing here, and you have, let me quickly show this, like on the bottom side of the back side of this design, you can see it here mirrored on the ground. You would have these tanks, and they are filled with air pressure. So this thing moves with air pressure. It's like insane if you think about it. Of course, it's like sci-fi bullshitting, right? But I thought it could be kind of entertaining.
But do you think about all these details every time you build a project? Are you thinking about the function of every aspect of the piece, or do you highlight certain part and leave something like other things out, or how much engineer or industrial design thinking goes into you building your projects?
Yes. So I mean, I learned this also through work, that entertainment kind of can go over functionality. So also, while I'm moving in this sci-fi area, I can, of course, bullshit around a bit with this. But also, what I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, like the guys in my area, they taught me this critical thinking of things. So I would literally like rethink a lot of elements, which I usually wouldn't. I usually would go more with, oh, this looks cool, but I wouldn't think like, oh, this doesn't make sense. Like for instance, I originally had this kind of ejection seat on the backside of it, where this kind of radio jammer is situated in the final design. So instead, I was thinking, oh, let's have a seat there, and it would be super cool if this guy could kind of, like in this image, sit here, has his like interface here, and just could like shoot and aim, and has like, it would be really entertaining. But then your whole concept like kind of crumbles as soon as someone says, why is this guy sitting outside? Like everyone can just shoot him out there. It's really stupid. And then I'm like, oh fuck, and I have to change the whole thing, right? So I made this thing like remote control thing with also, if you read this description here, this is kind of like the part where all the signal sits, and I made it that this is resembling the abdomen of a spider, or however you pronounce this. So yeah, it all makes more sense in the end. It's also always worth to change your design and kill your babies, right? So yeah. I was like really attached to this seed in the beginning, although it doesn't make sense. Like, so yeah, that's the.
Have you watched some of Mike Hill? I'm trying to find. Did you watch some of Mike Hill's presentations that he gave at Industry Workshop?
No.
You should watch them. I'll just share my screen for a second. So, if you guys don't know who Mike Hill is, go check him out. He has a couple of videos on how'd you call it? On his sorry, I'm losing my words. On his webpage, and anything he builds, like if he's going to build, he worked, let's say, on Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. So if he's going to build a ship, he doesn't just sort of block the thing and then skin it and then start thinking about the design from the outside. Like, he'll start by thinking about every single cabin that's in the how'd you call it, in the plane, the aircraft, and will build it to the size and proportion of human beings, and every decision basically is backed up by logic, and it's really impressive. If you go,
yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah,
I mean, this is really
breaks down his thinking and has a few videos. But go ahead, Lars.
Yeah, this is what you just mentioned. This is actually like really good design, and if you can, especially the industrial designers, right? They put a lot of what they learned into this, and someone like me probably would need to like study this to achieve this. And it can also be like a really immersive thing. Like you go into this spaceship like he's building there, for instance, and everything makes sense, right? Yeah. Everything is thought out. You can like really immerse yourself within something like that, like this is really good. And yeah, I mean, this is the highest level, I guess, if you can do this. That's sort of what I want to achieve, although it's really hard, right? I'm still kind of far away with this, and I try to get away with some sci-fi craziness sometimes, right? So it's fine. I mean, yeah.
I'll send you like links to his lectures, but they're mind-blowing, man. I watched two of them, and
thank you.
It's really impressive how he thinks about design and how he approaches design. Anyone who's interested in making props, making like the biggest shit you'll get when presenting your portfolio to an art director is, this doesn't make sense. Like, your design is flawed. It looks good. It's trendy. It fits the visual language of what is happening on ArtStation right now. So you've got the plus on the technique side, but the design thinking isn't there. And that's generally what that's what sort of takes you to that next level where you're not just sort of the technician, but you're also the creative director, the art director, and so on. Like we had Sava Zivkovic not too long ago, who did the IFCC main title for this year's event, and
Mm.
he's not the most talented. He's super talented. Like don't get me wrong, but I mean, he worked with a team. He art directed a team of people who were more skilled at character design than him, score, for the title and so on and so forth. But because
Yes.
he has that ability to sort of think critically about the design, think critically about all these different aspects of the project, so as to to be able to sell it to the public. That goes a long way in sort of making whatever project you're working on legit. So making it to human scale if you're going to make a prop, or just checking, sort of having a design checklist to make sure that it's not just fluff and sort of veneer, but there's actually meat to whatever it is that we're doing.
Yeah, this is so basically that's coming back to what I said earlier. Like when you go on ArtStation, for instance, and you see this amazing piece, like it has like thousands of likes, right? And everyone in the comment section goes like, "Wow, this is so great!" And then you can like leave your like there and be impressed by it, and it's all fine. Like artistically, it's impressive. The guy did an awesome job and everything, but then you also should be able to kind of see, okay, but for instance, this door wouldn't function like this, or this, I don't know, this paneling of the spaceship, no one would build it like this, or this would be too expensive to build it like this. Like this is not how 3D printing works, or whatever. If you can kind of like look at art like this is what the guys are basically trying to put in my head, then you also become a better artist, right? You can learn from others sort of flaws or mistakes. So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're not like blindly liking everything you see and just accept it too much as it is. You're not insulting someone's work or just calling this guy out or whatever. You just keep it for yourself and have this critical thinking of everything. That's I think a really cool method to improve.
Again, go and watch some of Mike Hill's presentations. They'll blow your mind. Like you'll even
Nice.
if you
I
don't,
saved the link earlier.
yeah, even if you don't figure out, if you don't figure it out, like in the how do you call it, like anytime, like for tomorrow or whatever, but it'll expose you to a different type of thinking. I know it was pretty inspiring watching that presentation, and just thinking about how sort of conscious, like the how conscious the decisions of doing certain making certain design decisions go about sort of pushing your project. That a lot of things that we see and like consciously or subconsciously are generally because someone decided to do them, whether it's the painting of a wall or whatever. Like it's a conscious decision and not an accident, like when building the set or whatever. Guys, it's we're almost getting to the wrap up time. If you guys have any last question for Lars, post them now. Lars, if there's anything you want to show or wrap up with, we can go through that too.
I mean, like as the title image said, I can just quickly show the breakdown finally of this kind of thing you saw there. Basically also key shot, I will just hide all my layers and click like hide, unhide them, so you can kind of see where this is coming from. So this was basically the base. You have the render somewhere. Let me find it. Can't find it right now, but somewhere I have where my mask is, like this ID, color ID I mentioned before.
like how right now you've sort of built a couple images, you know, for Sirens. Like, do you have a
Hmm.
specific goal with this IP going forward? Like, do you have a long-term vision that you're working towards, or is it at this point, is it just, you know, you're just taking your time and you don't have any specific plan and sort of just letting it be what, you know, like letting it find itself in a way?
Um, don't have like very big goals with it for now. I just kind of use it as my playground, you
Mm-hmm.
can say. So it kind of like is my own thing. I can experiment with it like I'm doing here right now.
Yeah.
It probably would need like design changes to make everything a bit more consistent again. It's like maybe drifting a bit away from this original concept. But I think it really helps. And if I can look back at it maybe at some day and I have all these designs and maybe I will say it still kind of makes sense and I have maybe some new skills, like maybe I can do a little movie or whatever,
Yeah.
that would be cool. Then I could, of course, like finish these assets, maybe redesign them a bit and could create something with it again. So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't have big plans for it actually.
Yeah. No, I
So
think
yeah.
I mean, it's, you know, that's how uh when Ash started Lost Boys, like it was just, you know, he was just drawing those characters because he enjoyed it. And
Yeah, they're really cool, by the way. Like I like these line drawings. That's
yeah,
really nice
and
style.
at one
So,
point I believe, you know, like close friends of him and family members were like, just do something with it instead of, you know, drawing it and
yeah.
leaving it here, just do something. And you know, next thing you know, like couple, not a couple years, but like some years later, like you have a quick short film, a full IP, and a vision behind it.
Yeah, that's
um
really nice.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It,
No.
it's a, it's really cool. It could also happen, like I can imagine, if you're like really lucky that someone really likes the idea and it turns into something even bigger,
Yeah.
especially if you have like um, these people around you, like he probably has, like he's like very um, anchored in the film industry already, or like people know him, right? And if they maybe like need a new IP or something, they could probably buy it from him, or he could work in cooperation with someone just to make something even bigger out of it. Or yeah, I mean, it's a really cool thing. Like I think doing IPs in general is a really good exercise. Like because if you think about it, if you work, let's say, in the film industry or games industry, you will most likely end up working on an IP, right? So you
Hmm.
you will have like a project, and they will work on this game, and it has a design language, and you will always have an advantage if you um, know how to fit certain things to others, and if you can read the design language, and you know
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Totally.
that's I think it's a really good thing. And
Totally.
also you will also automatically develop skills with it. Like for instance, I was suddenly doing a vehicle, right? And maybe I can show this quickly. I was also doing like this kind of, it looks a bit weird, but you have like this kind of Boston Dynamics kind of yeah, mount all of a sudden. So which is something I never did before as well. It just it creates opportunities, and then of course, yeah, this thing, and yeah, I had some sketches of it before, like you can see here.
Wow, those are
Um,
nice. That's really nice.
yeah, that's how I started with it actually. So I was just doing this scribbles. I was like, yeah. Also, I showed it to someone who said, "Hey man, this really has potential," and I wasn't sure. So yeah, but it ended up being this, has a bit different proportions, but still kind of inspired by this original design. Yeah, so it can also result from something you would never think of could be a potential project, right? So yeah, I think I showed everything in this PSD, unless people want to know certain things, how I do something within here. It's pretty chaotic PSD, by the way. But
Yeah. My files, unless I have to send them over to someone or I'm done, like they tend to be like that. Cool. I think we might wrap it up around like now.
okay,
It's been awesome, man. Like we've gone through a lot. You showed us a lot of stuff, and um, anytime you have something you'd like to sort of showcase or sort of break down, I'm sure people would love to have you on again and just sort of
yeah,
show us how you go
always
about,
welcome, man.
yeah, show us
It's
how you go
really,
about
really
doing
inspiring.
your magic. It's like
Thank-
for a year and a half, it's quite impressive. Like I'm really inspired by the sirens, just because I love storytelling. I'm reading The Expanse right now, and I just love it. Anything that
Oh, nice.
has that mix of like sci-fi and history and all that mythology, I'll jump both feet in without even hesitating. So I'm excited to see what you do with it, and I hope you don't just tackle it and then let it be on a corner. Just keep at it, and it's just going to get that much more awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. Also, thank you for recommending. What's his name again? Mark Hill,
Mike
right?
Hill,
Mike
yeah,
Hill.
you have to
Mike
watch
Hill.
that.
Yeah, that's. I will definitely do, man.
Yeah, watch
It
his
looks good.
stuff, because honestly, if you ask me today who's my favorite designer when it comes to design
Oh,
thinking,
wow,
that's him, without thinking, without
nice. Okay,
hesitating.
I
Like
will definitely check it out.
he
Yeah, sounds
is
good.
like he is that guy.
Yeah. Maybe one last thing I want to mention, because I just stumble here over the comment section.
Yeah, go
Like
ahead.
Hyperspace Beast is mentioning it's dangerous to become that critical, because I was mentioning this kind of critical view on things. Of course, it should be kind of like a healthy
With
critical thinking,
moderation, for sure.
Yeah, so you have, of course, to keep a balance there. You still have to um, be, like I said, basically, it should be a healthy thing, not like too blind, but also not too harsh, of course. So you
Like
have
it's
to,
important to have it because it will ground your projects and your designs and so on. But like anything, don't go so deep in the rabbit hole to the point where it stops you from doing work, because you're always trying to figure it out all the time. Like but
yes,
it does help, like being able to sort of learn what questions to ask to move your project forward, or look at your work and sort of from the perspective of a viewer, not yourself, not with the love you have for the
yeah,
project,
exactly, yeah,
but from someone who doesn't know you, doesn't know what tools you use, doesn't know anything about concept art, or even nothing. Like, how do they look at the work? What would they see? What issues would raise out of it, and so on? And being able to, if you can answer to those questions on your own, it means you generally have a solution to at least one solution to the problem. But if you get stuck on that question, why did you make this design decision, and you can't back it up, generally means there's a fault to your you're missing something. There's something you didn't think about, and it's something someone can call you out on. So generally, like, that critical thinking is to anticipate uh, issues with your design or with your decisions that might come
yes,
up in the future.
yeah, exactly.
All right. On that note, boys and girls and boys, we're going to wrap this one up. Thank you for jumping in on a Sunday evening. I'm sure you guys most of you are going to be going to work tomorrow. We'll try to have as many of these Sunday streams as possible, and try to focus them more on like project breakdowns and sort of behind the scenes and stuff. So if you guys have anyone you'd like to see on the stream, obviously send a message on Facebook or whatever. Just keep sending them, and same thing, if you have a project you dig, let us know, and we'll try to bring those people on the stream as possible. Thank you, Lars, for coming as always.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Always welcome. It was really cool and inspiring.
I'm sure you'll be back, and you know how to reach me. So
all right, yeah.
All right, people. So
have
you
a
guys
nice
have
Sunday.
a good one, and good beginning of the week. Peace.
See you.